condom fatigue. And Michael, you spoke to how, you talked about how the abstinence-only model doesn't work for gay men because you can't get married. And there's an assumption that gay men will never be in a long-term monogamous relationship. And yet I feel like there's not always a lot of space in the public health field to talk about, okay, if you're going to make a decision to stop using condoms, here are ways that you can do it that are safer. I mean, we talk about things like seropositioning, serosorting, and generally I feel like when we talk about it in the public health field, it's sort of like, oh, this sort of like this side strategy that we don't really, condone or don't want to talk about, and at the end of the day, we just need to get everyone to use condoms. Obviously, condoms are the most effective way to prevent transmission. But in a lot of other, we incorporate harm reduction into a lot of our work in public health, and I wonder if you have any thoughts about ways that we could do that along the lines of safer sex, or in ways that are different than what we're doing now, or maybe what we are doing now.
Well, I think we have to do that. I mean, I think we can't just rely on a single strategy. I think we in public health have this fear, reservation that what we say will get misapplied, and somebody who they think they're in that quote category and they're not in that category, and therefore they've misapplied this practice that we try to recommend. I do feel like we do need to take a few, I know it's the word of the day, I mean, we need to take a few risks to see what we can do in terms of what we can learn and what can work. And that means developing materials and approaches. And we're going to have to start from scratch because these just don't exist. This notion about, there is nothing we take off the shelf. Those 20-year-old CDC evidence-based interventions don't talk to this at all. So we have to come up with it here to figure out how we apply this notion that says, well, there is a serodiscordancy here. How does that work out in terms of your sexual health, your sexual activity? I also think that we tend to only define sex by one act, and we also don't talk to people about, well, there's lots of ways. I mean, they're on the shelves, I guess, or on the internet, but I mean, there are other ways that people can have. But we too, even in our community as a gay man, we think, well, it's not sex until we've done that, or we've not really cemented our relationship until that's happened. And I think we need to also give encouraging messages that that sex has multiple dimensions to it. I think right now we're doing, for instance, we're working with George Washington University. They're doing a survey, one of Whitman-Walker Health, one at our STD clinic, that is surveying people about their potential feasibility to do PrEP. And we're looking to see how we could potentially do that as a demonstration here in the district, because the difference, as Ray was pointing out, is that in the study you're always told this may or may not work. And for some people, the may not may mean that that's how it's going to impact their participation in the study. They're not going to take that pill, or they're going to give it away to somebody else. They're going to say they did it, but they didn't. I mean, I think what was the defining element of that study was that they actually looked at blood samples and tissue samples to see whether or not the medications had saturated the tissues, the human tissue, sufficiently so that it could, in effect, repel the virus. And it worked. We've also heard that in HPTN 52, sorry to sound like a public health person, but the partner study it was of heterosexuals, but it was a study of positive and negative negative study, and it worked. It worked so well that they actually stopped the study before it was done, because when people were adherent to their medications, they did not transmit the virus. So we need to figure out a way to get that message across. That's similar, and again, this is a challenging part, because these are things that you may not have to do for the rest of your life. You know, one of those in public health, I participated in a meeting in Boston that the CDC held around PrEP, and one of a handful of us that were public health people, the rest were really smart people, the scientist types. We're like, well, you have to tell people that they have to take this pill for the rest of their lives. Well, maybe not necessarily. Again, you know, we continue to define that says that, you know, gay men will always be risky, as opposed to maybe there's a period in their lives where they won't be risky. So we need to be able to reinforce those options that gay men have. But it's hard to sort of take these ideas and these scientific findings and say, okay, here's the practice, here's the way that we do it. You know, PrEP was a very expensive program when it was implemented as a study. They had, they were doing direct dispensing of medications for some of the participants. I mean, we've talked about that as for those who are people living with HIV as well. And that's a model that's been in the TB field, where you directly observe therapy. You come in every day, you see Ray, and Ray gives you your pill. That's how you make sure that the people are adherent to their treatment. So, and that may very well be a very effective strategy. In Baltimore, they do that at the Institute for Human Virology. That doesn't necessarily apply. So for instance, I'm sorry to ramble on, but one of the questions in the survey that we're doing around PrEP is, what are other people's health behaviors? You know, do you take a medication every day? You know, I take my cholesterol medication every day, the 2 pills that I have to take. I take my low-dose aspirin because I'm over 40. Sean, you have another year for that. But that's a recommendation. You take a low-dose aspirin every day. So are these, if you're accustomed to doing that kind of health behavior, then yeah, maybe you can take this Truvada every day. Sorry for Gilead. Give us money, sorry about Gilead. You take your Truvada every day because you're used to doing that. Because what we do know from the study is it doesn't work if you don't take it all the time.
I do want to jump in here. We're running up on our time, and I know Chris has a last question that he wants to get in.
Yeah, but before I do any of the 3 or 4 people that have noticed a chance to question? I mean, this isn't a fun room. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, there are people in this room who have been doing this HIV stuff, and then there are guests who probably are not, well, I'm assuming that are not living, breathing this stuff every day, which ideally would be the folks that probably should be in this room, but, you know, I guess it's a nice Thursday evening. But the question I have, though, for all 4, and I want to thank you all for being on this panel, is what do we do to engage more people and make them active around HIV prevention? You know, I have always thought that it would be kind of fun to see what would happen if I set up a Facebook page that said I encourage, you know, I'm going to ask 5 of my friends to get tested, just to see how many people would join that Facebook page. We really need to engage people. I wonder, you know, it's been a good turnout, and I think if we had, we weren't going to be for. So what do we do besides fear-based reactions, you know, to get people more engaged in this stuff?